Eye of the Tiger from Rocky 3, 1982. That was written because Sylvester Stallone actually wanted another one, Bites the Dust, by Queen. But Queen said, nah, you ain't having that, sorry. So he reached out and up came Eye of the Tiger instead. What a great track. Were you jumping around? Were you doing that shadow boxing thing? Did you get towards the end of it and get a little bit weary? I've got to be honest. Someone came up with a great idea last night that I would go to the gym before I came into the studio for this show. Frankly, I was not up and bouncing around shadow boxing. I'm struggling to lift my fingers to hit the buttons for the show this morning. What a workout. But a great way to start the day. And I'm nice and warm. What a great way to start the day. So let's talk about business. Because it's something we don't often think about if we're not in business. And actually, too many people who have their own business spend their time in the business rather than on the business. What do I mean by that? Well, you start businesses because you have a passion, don't you? You start a business because you have a belief that you have got something that will change the world. Something that you can step out and go, look at this. This is going to make your life so much better than it was before I brought my idea to market. Think about the big ones. Where would we be without our smartphones? Where would we be without Spotify? I don't know where I'd be without Spotify and YouTube doing this show. Where would we be without television? Well, we'd probably be a hell of a lot healthier, but never mind. Where would we be without the ability just to pop into a shop to buy everything we want? Sometimes before we even realise we want it. Where would we be? But then we start our business and we spend our time in the business, doing what we love, following our passion. We forget about being on the business. And that's sometimes when businesses begin to struggle because we don't think about all the challenging stuff. That's what I help businesses with, getting onto the business and making it work. And a massive shout out to Dynamic Pilates in Wellington, who moved from their old studio into the brand new studio on Torrey Street in Wellington. We were at the opening event last Friday night. What a bunch of tenacity. I've had the honour of working with that team for the last 18 months or so, and they have done a cracking job. So if you're in Wellington, you fancy doing a little bit of Pilates, go and visit Dynamic Pilates. Go and visit Chantal, and Chantal will be on the show in the future talking about what that move was actually about and what it took to get there, because it takes tenacity, business. There's a statistic out there that says if 100 businesses started today, inside 3 years, there would be less than 3 of them left. And over those 3, within the 5-year time period, only 3% of those would be left. That's how tough business is. That's how tough it is to actually take your idea, take your dream and bring it to reality. We all see the pictures of the garages that Steve Jobs, that Bill Gates started in and think, wow. What we don't realise is the time that takes. The time it took to go from that garage to Palo Alto or to the Seattle setup. The pictures of Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk when they started out. We don't see how long it took. In business, there's a figure of about 10 years. And the first 2 years, it's just an utter mess. I know, I feel it. In my business, it's an utter mess, and sometimes you make some revenue, sometimes you don't. Most of the time you love it, an awful lot of the time you feel like giving up, and then after 2 years, things begin to settle down. You begin to figure it out. You begin to go, this is actually making a little bit of sense to me, and revenue's a little bit less lumpy. You're beginning to get some systems in place. You're beginning to get some processes and some technology, and then in that sort of 4 to 8 years, you continue to improve. You do damage limitation, as my coach talks about it. Damage limitation as to all the things that you got wrong while you were trying to make it work. And then after your 8 years, this is 8 years, you begin to settle into some sort of successful business. So all those businesses that are out there who are in those early stages, keep going. Keep going. I work with businesses to help them with their people, their process, their technologies, to accelerate them through that 0 to 10 year point. But it's tough. Business is tough. We need the tenacity. We need the tenacity to keep driving. We need to get up every time we get knocked down. But what can we do? Because this isn't a show about business. This is a show about resilience. What can we do to help those businesses? Someone said to me the other day, you know those baby showers that people have before babies come along? Why do we have business showers? And rather than going to your mate and saying, you've just started a business, can I have a freebie? Or you've just written a book, can I have a free copy? Pay for the service. Pay for the book. Celebrate the fact that they have had the grit, the balls to start a business. They've actually taken it on the chin and said, you know what, I'm going to go out there and change the world in my little way. Go out and help them. Don't try and take freebies. Help them with a business shower and help them through it. But even just when we're walking down the street, when we walk into shops, engage with the people in the businesses. I had a lovely conversation in Ko-Fi Cafe this morning when I picked up my cup of coffee before the show. A conversation about when they get busy. What's the favourite dish? Use their names. Too often when we walk into a shop and people have got name badges on, we think the name badge is there so that we can complain about people. Why not use the name? Try that today. In every shop that you go into where someone has a name badge, use their name. Thank them and use their name. Because, that's what this is about. If we create a community around about everything we do, we create a community, and it just means that people, maybe they're having that tough day, maybe the bills are stacking up. Those are the things that we don't see as the outsiders of business. Maybe it's a tough day, and saying thank you, using someone's name is sometimes just enough to make them realise that there's a blue sky. There's a blue sky out there that might just be waiting for you.
My rainy days are gone, ain't got cloudy weather. I've got myself together, there's a blue sky waiting for me. Another brand new day, and all along life's highway, the sun is going my way, there's a blue sky waiting for me. Goodbye to the rain man, soon be on his way. You won't need your overcoat, it's gonna be a sunny day. Now I'm stepping out, feel as if I'm flying, laughing till I'm crying, there's a blue sky waiting for me. Mr. Snowman, soon be on his way. You won't need your overcoat, it's gonna be a sunny day. And now I'm stepping out, feel as if I'm flying, laughing till I'm crying, there's a blue sky waiting for me. stepping out. Feel as if I'm flying, laughing till I'm crying. There's a blue sky waiting for me. There's a blue sky waiting for me. There's a blue sky and it's waiting for me.
Steve Carlin, there's a blue sky waiting for me. Don't forget to get your tickets. I know I'm sounding a little bit like a broken record, but I'd stop if it was sold out, and it's not quite sold out yet. 9th of July at the Carterton Event Centre. If you can make it there, come and make an evening of it. It will be an absolutely great evening. But it is time to introduce our first guest. Neil Calvert is an entrepreneur, owns a business, chief exec of a business called Link in Wellington, and we're going to talk to him about the stuff I was talking about before the show, before that track. What's it like to actually be an entrepreneur? What does it actually take? Neil, good morning.
Good morning, Stu. How you going?
Yeah, I am good. Thank you very much for asking. So, entrepreneurs. We too often we see entrepreneurs and think of Jeff Bezos, we think of Elon Musk, we think of Steve Jobs and all those great names. We've probably not quite heard of Neil Calvert and Link yet, but what is your business?
Oh, cool. Wouldn't it be nice if we just all suddenly became entrepreneurs like them, right? And world known instantly. So the business that I'm in, I've built a platform that helps organizations understand the impact of change prior to them committing to take that journey. I guess the scenario is, change is all around us, whether it's environmental, whether it's staff changes, whether it's technology. And so often organizations jump into that process of updating what they're doing or changing processes, and they don't really understand what the outcome is going to be before they start. So that's something that they deal with as they go. And unfortunately, the statistics still tell us that 70% of those change programs fail. And I kind of looked at that statistic and went, well, hang on a second. We've got Elon producing electric cars that are becoming consumable now. He's put one of those in space. We send satellites into orbit every single day, and yet we've got organizations where the change process hasn't really evolved alongside the rest of the opportunities that we have as a civilization. And I kind of looked at that and went, that doesn't feel right, really. So what can we do about it? So that was the start of the journey.
So why? I completely get it. We see change. As human beings, we disappear into ourselves when change is suggested because the ego wants to protect us. But why you? Yeah. Why was it you that said, actually, do you know what? It's my time to do this.
So that kind of, I guess, it leads into what my journey has been, I guess, over the last years, really, which is, so my background's actually mapping. I was a cartographer. That my degree's mapping science and environmental science. And as I started to do that, it became digital. So GIS became, Geographic Information Systems became the tool to do all of that. And I realized that was all about data. It's all about information, helping organizations understand the things that they can do if they just look at things differently. They understand the relationships between stuff. And it was, that just led to opportunity where you start working with organizations and helping them understand the impact that can have on themselves, but more importantly, their customers and us, consumers of things that these organizations deliver to us. And it was an evolution. It was an opportunity. It was doing a piece of work and there was a problem that needed to be solved, and found a way of solving it. And then had the crazy idea of, it would be interesting if that wasn't just a consulting activity. That was actually a process with a tool that other people could use. Really trying to, I guess, amplify what I was doing as an individual to make it available to more people without me becoming the bottleneck to that process. And, right there is the crazy idea to build something that you sell and other people use. And then people label you as an entrepreneur. So
Yeah,
that's
interesting.
how that came about.
Yeah, nicely put.
Yeah.
You didn't set out to be an entrepreneur; you just turned into one. Now,
Yeah.
at the top of the show, I was talking about the time it actually takes. I'm quite sure that when we all get started, we're going to be the next unicorn. We're going to be the next billionaire organisation by a week next Tuesday. How long ago did you have this idea?
So it's been close to 7 years now. I've been working for myself for 8 years, and it was maybe 12, 18 months after I'd started doing that work that this idea emerged. And so it's really been, close to 7 years worth of effort.
So you must be a multi-9-figure business by now, then.
I wish. Hey, wouldn't that be lovely? No. It's still whether the financial side of things is the motivation or not. I think I'm actually still more motivated by having an opportunity to help as many organisations as possible by having huge numbers of people using what I do and benefiting from it. And I think then naturally, the remuneration from that, as long as the platform adds value, people I believe are willing to pay for it. But you have to achieve that other thing first, right? You got to have loads of users. I have been described in the past as the best platform that this person had ever seen that no one was using. And that, I think that actually describes the most significant challenge that people like me who are in business have, and that's exposing what you do to enough people that they can help you achieve whatever that financial security is that you're looking for. But I don't believe that's always the driver and the motivation to start doing this type of thing. There are other characteristics, right?
And I think the tenacity to keep going when in that roller coaster of business, you wouldn't have that tenacity if there was a dollar figure at the end of it, because you can just go and get a job. And I know for some people that sounds a really trite comment to make, but we can go and get a job somewhere and get our paycheck at the end of the month. So that proves that entrepreneurship isn't just about the money. There has to be a deeper need for it. What's your definition of an entrepreneur?
I'm glad you asked, because the dictionary one is utterly rubbish and uninspiring, isn't it? I don't know whether you've looked at that.
I think it's outdated, but yeah.
Oh yeah, it basically says it's just someone who sets up a business, taking on some financial risk in the hope of making money. Effectively, that's what they describe it. For me, it's more about. I think you touched on it a bit earlier. In the bit before this, it's people that have an idea, but associated with that is a level of curiosity that drives them to go to basically answer what if by taking action. So I can see a gap, or I come up with this crazy idea, and then it's that pondering. It's like, I wonder what happens if, and you do a bunch of research and you go and look to see whether someone's done it before, and you might talk to friends and family and other people about it. But ultimately, you become an entrepreneur by taking action against that and actually doing something about it. And that's the bit, I think, that's where the risk and the acceptance of that risk, and that's where your passion and your drive and possibly your past experience and maybe a heap of frustration that you have about the current situation, all of that drives you to then do this thing. And then your label is, well, now you're an entrepreneur.
So how's your definition of being an entrepreneur shifted over the last 7-8 years? What did you think it was when you got started? Was it just, I've had an idea, I'll set up a business, or did you jump in with eyes wide open?
Oh, I wish. No, when you start, I think you've got this. You do look out into the community, and you do see people like Elon and Jeff Bezos, and you kind of go, oh, this would be brilliant. I can do something really exciting, and I'm in control, and I've got all this flexibility. And then reality it's a sledgehammer. There was so much naivety, I think, when you start, because you just don't know. It's not like you can go to university for 3 years and take your entrepreneurial success degree, and at the end of that, you know exactly what you're doing. And some people might go, oh, but that's what an MBA is, and it absolutely isn't.
No.
And so it's learning by doing, and every day. I've got a couple of little quotes. One of them is "Every day is a school day," and it really is, because things just come along that you haven't thought about, despite the fact that you spend all of the time as necessary doing planning, whether it's today, this week, this month, next year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. There are still things that come along that you haven't anticipated, and you have to be able to react to those things. And no plan survives the first step of implementation. So you're constantly having to evolve what you think you were doing in order to get your outcome delivered. So and it has been a constant thing. And I think that's one of the aspects of running your own business, especially in tech. I think it can be different for other industries, where it may be a little more quantifiable. But what we're doing is not only a new way of thinking and a new way of looking at an organization. There are tools out there that people have grown up with using and are taught at university. And so you have to kind of overcome all of that as well. And that just makes it really challenging, because you've got your naysayer, you've got but we've got this already. And, you're suddenly into education, as well as just doing the things that you want to do, which is having people become successful by using what you do. But you've got to prove it, and that's a constant battle.
I think it's a really interesting point you make. Too often when we look at business, or when we're putting together a business plan, or you're looking for investment, people ask who the major competitors are. Now, there's a huge different debate about competitors versus camaraderie in the marketplace, and I know you've got a view on that, but too often people look at the competitors and they say, well, it's that platform, it's this platform, it's them. But apathy and aversion to change is often the biggest competitor for a startup and for an entrepreneur.
Absolutely, and it's one of the biggest ones that we battled with. It's much easier to carry on doing what you're doing today, even if it's not giving you the outcomes that you necessarily think you should be getting, because the change is perceived as being harder. And so the only way of getting around that is by finding people inside an organization who have the pain that you can help them with. And I always, I try to describe as what we do. We're just an offer of help. And so if you are struggling with this thing, and you know that you are, and you can identify the impact that's having on you personally and the business, then how about thinking of our offer of help as a way of being able to overcome some of those challenges? But that apathy, particularly at lower levels inside organizations, when people are just on the tools, or they've been there for a very long time. I believe the most expensive words that an organization can ever say are, but we've always done it this way. But that's what you're fighting against all the time. And you've got to come up with new ways of being able to counter that apathy. And that comes from social proof, so evidence that you've been into an organization similar to this one that you're talking to, and you've helped them, and this is the outcome that they achieved, and wouldn't you like to have that same outcome? And that's really the way of being able to blow through apathy. But in order to get there, you have to have had customers and delivered outcomes, and have them willing to talk. And so there's an entire journey wrapped up within that, just to be able to counter that apathy that does exist, without a doubt.
The challenge of your first 10 clients is far harder than the challenge of your first 100 clients.
Well, people say that, but
really?
I'm not quite sure that's true either.
Okay.
So, what they tend to say is you have to be able to sell to people that aren't your family and friends, right?
Yes.
So, it's easy. When you start off, that's who you hope will help you by buying, and you go to people that know you, and you use that relationship. And then you have to sell your first, and then it's supposed to be the 10, and then there's an entire book, isn't there, about just adding a zero. But actually there's an awful lot to go from 10 to 100. Just because you've done 10, it doesn't mean that it's easy just to turn the tap and get 100, because I think it's dependent on your reach from your marketing. It depends on the capacity that you have inside the organization to do things. It depends on where you are. So New Zealand's an awesome place as an incubator, because of that whole 2 degrees of separation. You can pretty much go and find the right person to talk to through your own network. But I don't believe it's sustainable as a captive audience for many organisations. So you have to look to how do you break out of New Zealand, and that's where the fun starts. I sell to large enterprises, and that's even that. I guess that adds another level of complexity in that you have to endure long sales cycles.
So how would you describe a large enterprise? Give us some examples. No, maybe not of clients, but just what's a large enterprise, just to give people an idea.
Yeah, sure. So I see a large enterprise as being 500 employees plus, 1,000 plus, but primarily they have got departments that are responsible for things like continuous improvement, business change. They've got business analysts. They might have a dedicated IT team. They'll have roles inside the organization like chief information officer, chief data officer.
Right.
So they're the grown-up organizations that have been around for a long time, and because of that, they've evolved over time. And it's that evolution that creates opportunities for businesses like me.
Yeah, awesome. You did mention it a little bit earlier on. We've really focused on the tenacity of the entrepreneur, of the business owner. I know that you're a dad, you're a husband. How's this entrepreneurial journey been taken from the home front? I'm quite sure there's been support all the way through it, but there must have been some challenges in there.
Oh, without a doubt. So yeah, no, I'm hugely lucky to have a very supportive wife who gets why I'm doing what I'm doing, and my son Max, he's 14, and he also gets it. In fact, until not many years ago, he was kind of fixated a little bit that I was the boss, and that was kind of cool from his perspective, being 8 years old. But no, absolutely, there's a challenge because we've got a mortgage and we've got outgoings that we have to manage, and we want holidays and breaks away and that kind of thing. And so when your cash flow does dry up to the point that you are running the business by not taking out what you need, obviously that doesn't, you can't do that forever. And that's when the conversations start about, right, you need to go and find a proper job. and it's like, hang on, no, this is a proper job. It's just a different job. And getting through those times are when you have to rely on, your relationship and the strength behind that, and having those conversations and being transparent about where you're at and things. And, I've had to have those conversations, but thankfully come out of the other side of them. And I'm lucky because my wife's got she's got a good job doing something that she's incredibly passionate about. And that takes a lot of stress away in that there is regular income coming in from her. And as you said, I know that if I needed to, I could go and find another way of just creating some cash, because that's ultimately what you need to survive as the family. But I know, and she knows, that wouldn't be a thing that I'd want to do. Yeah. So there's that, there's a balance there. Absolutely. The flip side of it is I work from home, so I get to be around. Like this morning, finish with you. I can take my son to school. Monday's doing a thing in Wellington. I can go in because I can choose to take some time out to go and support him, and you can be around because of that flexibility. It's not 9 to 5. It's any time to any time, depending on what you're doing and what you need to achieve. So there are those flexibility bonuses to working for yourself and doing this type of work.
And yet again, that comes down to that bigger why. It's not just about the dollar figure. It's about that freedom that being an entrepreneur, being a business owner offers. I've heard entrepreneurs described as the people who live the way most people won't, so they can spend the rest of their lives living the way most people can't.
Yeah. I guess that's a really good summary. Yes. I hope that I can get to that point that. And that's it. But then when you say it that way, sometimes that that also can sound a little bit like, oh, really? There's the expectation of a level of entitlement as the result of doing all of this work, and I'm still not doing it for that. I am doing it to ultimately be able to secure a future for my son, absolutely. But then aren't we all, with whatever we do and however we choose to create that opportunity. So yes, the living the way other people can't. That doesn't sit well with me either. I think it's actually about having opportunities to do the things that you want to do, based on who you are, what moral code you carry and your ethic and your ambition to be part of a community. And I think being successful as an entrepreneur and ultimately whatever the exit is, you're either running a company that's just making enough money each month to be profitable and generate outcomes for people, or you sell, and create some wealth as a result of that. It's having an opportunity to decide what to do with that, beyond what you can ordinarily do if you donate to charity on a monthly, fortnightly basis, just based on your salary. I think there's a different opportunity to affect an outcome that happens as a result of doing this.
Yeah, completely. And certainly from my own perspective, being an entrepreneur, I don't think I'm ever likely to stop. There'd be far too many hours in the day if you were to stop, but it's how you fill your time. And filling your time means that you can give back, because you've got a different set of needs to other people in society. So top 3 tips for anyone thinking about starting off on the journey that you started over 7 years ago.
Yeah, and I knew you were going to ask me this, so I have thought about it. So number 1 is don't believe your financial models.
Yeah, brilliant. Yep.
Just don't, especially if you're going for an investment, they want to see the hockey stick, and then you drive to the hockey stick, and do you know what? It's rubbish, and it can have you making decisions that are wrong, that impact you downstream, and been there, done that. I'm happy to talk about that more with people if they're interested. Second one is it will take longer than you think. So you might have a 3-year or a 5-year journey in mind, double it at least, to get to a point where things are more comfortable and you can expend your energy where it's needed, as opposed to the emotional energy of waking up in the middle of the night wondering how you're going to do the next thing that you need to do. And the third one is ask for help early and often.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Magic happens in teams. It's about having diversity of thought, and you can't do it on your own. You need people around you, and it's not even people that you are paying. It's just asking for advice. It's going to friends. It's going to other people that have done it, and being really open that. And there's a self-awareness that's needed with that. And yes, you are possibly opening yourself up to all sorts of other emotions, but you have to ask for help. And you mentioned one of my little strap lines. I've got this thing that I now live by, which is amateurs compete and professionals collaborate. And I think being able to build collaborations with other people, even if you believe they're initially a competitor, is all part of that asking for help. So that possibly should have been the first number 1, not number 3. But that's a super important thing.
And a beautiful segue into the book review that we'll do after the next track, and into our second guest, Dinah, who is I'm not going to say people manager, but people leader in the Wairarapa. But you chose a track. Tell me about why you chose Giant.
Yeah, so I chose Giant by Rag and Bone Man. I know he's been I just really like it. I think his story's kind of interesting in that he'd been just doing hip hop and things for a very long time before he was recognised for his voice. So there's that journey thing. There's tenacity there, which is just don't give up, keep putting yourself out there. But as a track, I like Calvin Harris. I'm into that little mix of some retro stuff. I've got a very eclectic mix of music that I listen to. But it's about being a giant. And sometimes I think you have to feel like a giant to make this kind of thing work. But sometimes you need to be able to stand on a giant. You need the support of others. So both of those lyrics are kind of in this song, but mainly it's just I think it's a banging track. So that's why I chose it.
Brilliant. Neil, thanks a lot for your time. And here is your track, Giant by Calvin Harris.
Thanks to you.
I stood loneliness before I knew what it was. Saw the pills on your table for your unrequited love. I would be nothing without you holding me up. Now I'm strong enough for both of us, both of us, both of us, both of us. I am a giant. Stand up on my shoulders. Tell me what you see. 'Cause I am a giant. We'll be breaking boulders underneath our feet. I am a giant. Oh, I am a giant. Don't hide your emotion. You can throw down your guard and feed from the notion. We can be who we are. You taught me something, yeah. Freedom is ours. It was you who taught me living is togetherness, togetherness, togetherness. I am a giant. Stand up on my shoulders. Tell me what you see. 'Cause I am a giant. We'll be breaking boulders underneath our feet. I am a giant. Oh, I am a giant. Gonna shake, roll the weight in the dirt under me, yeah. Gonna shake, roll the weight in the dirt under me, yeah. Gonna shake, throw the weight in the dirt, yeah. Gonna shake, throw the weight in the dirt, yeah. Gonna shake, throw the weight in the dirt, yeah. Gonna shake, throw the weight in the dirt.
There we go. Giant by Calvin Harris. What a great conversation with Neil Calver of Link. If you are interested in having a look at Link, www.link.it is the website. Go and have a look. Go and see what he's talking about when he's talking about creating change within, a different way of creating change within the organisation. Right. Book review time. So if you're watching the telly box, today's book is Surrounded by Idiots. Well, that doesn't sound very kind, does it? Because why did I choose that book this week? Because actually business is all about the people. If you think about any business that you are engaged in, any business that you deal with, there is a person front and centre. I remember one occasion back in probably about a decade ago when we were looking at moving to New Zealand, and we had to go in and make a bank payment from the UK to Canada. And the bank clerk just wasn't getting it. And it was a very, very, very uncomfortable situation for both of us. But unfortunately, and I am the guilty one in this moment, that my fiery red director-style personality came to the fore, and it got really quite uncomfortable. We then had to, a few weeks later, do exactly the same thing. And fortunately, I had taken time to reflect on what an asshole I had been during that visit, the first visit to the bank. And I reflected on the sort of individual who is likely to be on the other side of the counter, the sort of person on the other side of the counter in the bank who wants to be helpful. And I decided that, well, rather than being the director type leader that I usually am, I would reflect their character trait, a character trait of someone who is likely to be a helper, wants to make people feel good, wants to do the job to the best of their abilities, and actually spends their lives dealing with, frankly, dicks like me. So I reflected their character type. And my word, what a joyous experience it was for everyone. I think even my marriage improved that day because there was a realisation that I'm not always having to be that director type. I learnt a lesson. I learnt that I'm not surrounded by idiots, and that is the whole point of the book called Surrounded by Idiots. It accepts that we're all different. It accepts that we are unique. It suggests that there are 4 different types of human behaviour. Let's not say human beings. 4 different types of human behaviour. And it's all about how we can understand those people that we can't understand, or people who choose not to be understood. There's another way of putting it that we could debate for ages. But it's a really simple read. There are quizzes throughout it, questions that you can reflect on throughout it to make you think about the people around about you. But one of the greatest challenges about reading books like Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erickson is that you should actually internalise it. Don't think about all the idiots around about you. Think about what you might be doing that causes people to think that you're the idiot. There's a task for today. So there's 2 tasks for today. Wow, we're certainly racking up the homework. Go out into a shop today and use someone's name and thank them for the service that they are providing. But also, reflect. When there is a debate going on, where there's an argument going on, where there is a conflict, think about what you can do to remove some of the heat from that conflict. Because that's actually what we should all be doing. There is no point, and there's absolutely no excuse for this because we've played it before on the show, but this is just such a belter track. But the longer we choose to see people differently, it will stop us joining together and making life better for everyone.
See, Billy got picked on in school for things he couldn't change. He tried his best to play it cool, but in the 7th grade, you either fit right in or you don't fit. That's just the cold hard truth. I wish that I'd have been the friend that Billy never knew. I think it's time we come together, you and I can make a change. Maybe we can make a difference, make the world a better place. Look around and love somebody. We've been hateful long enough. Let the good Lord reunite us till this country that we love's undivided.
Yup. You either go to church or you're gonna go to hell. Get a job and work or you're gonna go to jail. I just kinda wish we didn't think
There you go. Undivided. Tim McGraw and Tyler Hubbard. That one for me never grows old. I just love the words. I was in a conversation yesterday. I did a workshop yesterday, and we were talking about conflict negotiation and how we can collaborate better. And that whole line of left and right, or blue and red. Well, we've got to come together. We've got to find a way to actually make this work. We've got to work together as human beings for the greater good, which is absolutely awesome, because it segues beautifully from the book Surrounded by Idiots to talking to someone who spends her life looking after, I'm going to say looking after rather than dealing with, looking after people. Dinah, good morning.
Good morning, Stu.
How are you this morning? Where are you this morning in the lovely Wairarapa in New Zealand?
In the beautiful Martinborough this morning.
Surrounded by vineyards and grape. I'm sure you're not imbibing quite yet. Although I can quite understand why, as a human resources manager, you may feel the need. Tell me, how would you describe a human resources manager? What do you actually do?
Essentially, a human resource manager looks after people, and which are obviously our most important resource of a business. So, making sure we've got a good workplace culture and training and strategy planning across the business. Mm-hmm. Essentially just ensuring that everyone and everything's okay.
So you are the human resources manager, the people looker afterer.
Yes.
In South Wairarapa Vets.
Yes.
Tell me, what's the size of the organisation? What do you do? I think we can probably guess by the name on the side of the box. But yeah, yes. How big's the organisation? What do you do? What's your reach?
We've got we've got most all of the South Wairarapa. We've got 4 clinics. So probably one of our largest challenges is meeting the needs of all the people in the South Wairarapa, and also essentially through the 4 clinics, ensuring that everyone's okay within those areas. I'm new to this particular role, and it was developed in the last sort of couple of years for this. But I've been with the business for about 11 years, so not new to the business and the clinical side of veterinary, but new to the HR.
How big's the business?
We've got up to 70 people in our business.
70 people across 4 different locations.
Yes,
so what's the biggest challenge you face on a day-to-day basis?
Well, probably leading the teams within those 4 clinics is challenging for any business. We've got team leaders in each clinic, which is awesome. Spending quality time, ensuring you spend quality time with staff is can be challenging. Everyone, making sure everyone's needs are met, certainly can be demanding. But it's a job that I love doing, so it's not a challenge. In fact, of the fact is it's challenging, but it's it's a great job.
So here's a question that I'm quite sure many people don't really consider. You've been a part of the business for over a decade, and you mentioned you were part of the clinical side, and then you shifted into people leading.
Yes.
What was the biggest challenge you found in moving from one part of the business to a new part of the business?
I think because when you're with a team at a level of the level I was at, the nursing level, and then moving into leading those nursing teams, and probably the biggest challenge is you still want to be part of those teams.
Oh yeah.
You still want to feel they need you and that they respect you for being one of them. So it is challenging going from different levels within a business. But I still feel that the camaraderie between us all is tight. So yeah, it's meeting that challenge, I suppose.
It's a challenge that when I work with businesses, quite often one of the greatest challenges people have is promotion from within, because all of a sudden you are promoted, and you've got to go through that from being friends to being a first among equals to actually being that that director of activity. How did you? Was there anything you did in the business that changed the business, that allowed you to stamp your place as the people leader?
Well, we started years ago. We started yearly reviews with staff, and that made a difference. Being part of that yearly review for staff and being with them and supporting them in that direction. So that sort of was one step ahead for being able to be leading but being part of. So in those yearly reviews, we celebrate their wins for the year, and it's a great time to work out further development, areas of CPD or areas that they need to support in. So yeah, I think that is still, you can still be part of that team, but be a leading area of that team.
So you talk about the team. Do you have team values?
We have business values, team values, which we are definitely working on at the moment. But as far as our business values, yes, we do, and having values is hugely important. So focusing on those is definitely something that we will be doing more of.
So one of the questions that I always ask businesses when I'm invited in to help them, and it might not be the first question, but it's certainly one of the question is, do you have values? Do you know what the second question is?
Do I know them?
Exactly. What are the values of South Wairarapa Vets?
Yeah, so our values are honesty, empathy, motivation, and professionalism. So being professional.
And how did you come to them?
Well, the business came to them. It was worked out business wide. So then integrating those values into our day-to-day life is important. And it's something, having values is sort of quite new to me, because I've always had them, but it's focusing on how they make you work, I suppose, is the other way of looking at it. And it's knowing that how you can use those values within the workplace and in your home life.
Yeah, and I think, and one of the reasons that I asked the question up front, one is to see which direction it's going in, but I find that if you have, let's call them problem children in the organisation, rather than dealing with the individual, you can deal with it from a values-based conversation, and that values-based conversation always because let's face it, these conversations are never comfortable. You can, because you're not talking about the person, you're talking about values, it makes it easier for everyone. What do you think? Absolutely.
Yeah, I think looking at situations of if there is a conflict situation or a situation that we find tricky to deal with, taking a minute, and it's not a minute, it's seconds, thinking, okay, how am I going to do this? Going back to my values, how am I going to be honest in this situation? How am I going to be empathetic? How am I going to continue this situation until it finishes? So, and being professional at the same time. So, yeah, using those values and what I'm really using them now in every situation that I fall into is, and that's helping me, come to a better outcome.
I think you just said something really, really interesting. And look, I mean, I completely agree. You know that the question I live my life asking is, I wonder why, or I wonder if. But you mentioned seeing it through to the end. Quite often we dive into issues or conversations, and we've figured out it's a little bit like someone who's really bad at chess, speaking from experience. You think about the next move and maybe the second move, whereas the grandmasters are thinking 6 or 7 moves ahead. So being able to think it through all the way through, how do you do that?
Well, it depends on how much time you've got to think. If it suddenly springs on you, well, then it's a little bit trickier. But when I go into a situation that I know could be awkward or tricky, I mean, I think about how do I want the end, what do I want the end to look like?
Great.
So obviously we want a good outcome for both people. This might not be the most favourable outcome for either of us, but it still has to be resolved at the end. And if it's not, then we need to move to the next step of resolving it. And you going through your values and using those steps as well will hopefully get to an area where you can be a little bit more comfortable. Get
to a place that no one feels the loser. I was asked yesterday during a workshop that I did about conflict negotiation and or conflict resolution. Can all conflicts be resolved? Now, my answer to that was yes, they can all be resolved, and we've seen that throughout history. But sometimes, people don't get what they want, and it's all about making sure that everyone feels that they haven't lost.
I think reading situations and listening, that's probably the first key to it, is actually thinking, what is this person thinking and how are they feeling? And also acknowledging that you do understand this situation, and if you don't, then find out a little bit more about it before you make that next step or that next decision.
Completely agree, and you've just I won't waste valuable time talking to you, but I will talk about it at the closing end of the show about how we actually deal with that. You also you mentioned values in your private life. Have you got have you taken time to actually consider what your personal, what your family values are?
Yeah, I think I have. I've actually. It's really been quite a step for me to really focus on what they are, and I would have always had these values, but I've made them stronger for me, and it's really helped me in multitude situations recently. So, look at my 4 personal values are tenacity, resilience, empathy and gratitude, and I'm feeling now every day that I'm focusing on those values. I have made a name up for them, so they're called TREG. They're my values. And that's so I remember them. But it's not that I'm not going to forget. It's not that I'm going to forget them. It's just that so then I can use them more effectively. So on a daily basis, I always have the strength, the will to get on and get going, to be strong. And if you get knocked over, which you can quite often in our jobs, and the veterinary industries can be a tough industry to be in. Every day there can be a knockback or, a setback. You don't know what's going to come in the door each day. It's a quite unpredictable job with pets and people. So it's and we deal with large animal horses, so you just don't know what you're going to meet. So you have to have that resilience to be able to go, okay, I can deal with this. We're going to find a solution to this problem or this event. Having empathy, showing that you really care, you really understand people and what's in front of you, and gratitude and being thankful that you've been able to be around great people and great clients and animals. So that's my values.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that, because I understand that values are actually quite personal, and I've got mine, and I share them broadly. They're in the book, but having your values allows you to reset, and you've just triggered a thought that. I use my values before I walk into any new meeting to reset, to make sure that I'm not taking the energy of the last meeting into the next meeting. It must be quite a challenge for veterinary staff to reset between patients, because you're not just dealing with human beings, you're also dealing with animals as well.
It's massive. It's a huge thing to be able to go between patient, that walk in the door, clients that walk in the door. You don't know what you're going to meet. We have quite a structured diary every day. It's structured every week, but you just don't know what's going to be your next job sometimes. And you've got to be able to flick between the good and the bad, and make decisions quickly. And it's hugely challenging. We've got amazing front of house staff that really, really face it day after day with people in front of them and animals, and you've got to be able to make that okay, and it's not always easy. I think people forget how hard that is.
I had a saying in my past life that I used to say to the lads before we started off on whether it was a particularly dangerous or whatever operation. Whatever comes through that door, it's going to be different, and that was enough just to stop complacency. I use it when I'm sitting in a glider just before launch. Just remember, this is going to be different. Just to remind myself that I've got to be in that moment and no other moment, because we don't know what's walking through that next door. Yeah.
No, that's right. And having that resilience is important, and it's something we're certainly focusing more on, and will be over the next wee while, because as you say, people will have values, but it's how we can use them to make our day us stronger in our day.
Totally. Do you wear name badges?
We do. Everyone has a name badge.
Okay.
It's either sewn onto their uniform or pinned on. Sometimes you take your jacket off and your name badge is on the jacket but not on your shirt. So it's really important to know people's name.
So why do you think, or why do you have name badges?
I think it's really important it's lovely to know who you're talking to. Personally, the staff, we all know each other. Yeah. We're a close team, but I think it's nice for people to know who they're talking to, for the public to know.
And do they use them? Do they use your names?
Yeah, and we use their names because that's important.
Look, completely. I mean, one of the challenges that I've set this morning on the radio is for people to use name badges when they walk into shops or doctors or veterinary services today. Use people's names because, the point of the name badge is not to have someone to complain about. It's actually to show the empathy to what they're going through during that day. This has been fascinating, and I hope that for small businesses, for larger businesses, who are listening, the challenge of leading people is one of the greatest joys and one of the greatest challenges of business. And I think the insight you've given this morning has been amazing. And I know that dovetails nicely into the song that you chose. Why did you choose Everything I Do?
I chose that because I love Bryan Adams, and
who wouldn't?
And I've seen him live, and he's amazing.
Okay.
But firstly, obviously, we should care for ourselves. If you can't, you've got to care for yourself. If you're leading a team, you've got to be that. You've got to be okay. If you can be okay, that's good. But then the next stage is we do, mostly in our lives, we're doing it for other people. So being able to care for others is important. So that's my song.
Brilliant. Dinah, absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And here is the track. I think it's actually still number one in the UK. It has been since for the last 23 years, I think. Here you go, a little bit of Bryan Adams, Everything I Do.
Thanks.
Into my eyes, you will see what you mean to me. Such a
Bryan Adams, Everything I Do, from that Robin Hood film Prince of Thieves, back in the 2009, I think it was. God, this music, it just does age us just a little bit. Right. So many things I could pick up on from the conversations with Neil and with Dinah. What are your values? Do you have values? It's a really interesting concept to sit back and ask, what do I actually stand for? Because if we don't stand for anything, then we fall for anything. What are your values? In the olden days, and I'm talking sort of or post Second World War, but before that, our values generally came from whichever good book our family chose to follow, or whatever belief system we were a part of. But as we've become a more and more secular society, sometimes we struggle to find what our values are, what we believe in, what our red lines are. And if we don't have those, then it makes leadership really challenging. When I work with senior execs and we talk about leadership and what is leadership, well, if you've read Lead Through Life, leadership is really, really simple. Leadership is about being bold, and that's BOLD. You can have a full head of hair and still be a good leader. But being bold is all you need to be a good leader, a bold leader. But being bold means that you need your values. You need to actually understand what you stand for. And Dinah's done her work. She's got TREG, her 4 values. I have 6 values, not trying to show off, but I have 3 internal ones and 3 external ones. Enthusiasm, bravery, and tenacity are the way that I choose to grow into what I choose to be, and I choose to be an inspiration, honest, and present towards everyone I meet. Those are my values. I check in with them every morning. I write them down at the beginning of my journaling time of a morning. And if you want, if this is resonating, you're struggling how to start, jump on to www.studarling.com. There is the Lead Through Life journal that you can download and start using. It starts with gratitude, but it also starts with, what does my day look like? What is my mantra? So I write my mantra down every morning, and it makes me think, what sort of person do I want to be today? Well, I want to be enthusiastic. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to show tenacity. I'm going to be an inspiration. I shall be honest, and I will be present to everyone I meet. Now, how does that go? Well, sometimes it doesn't quite go the way I want it to do. Sometimes I have bad days, and maybe I don't show the enthusiasm that I should. Maybe I am disengaged when I'm talking to people. But that's why at the end of the day, I check in. Did I have enthusiasm? Was I brave? Did I have tenacity? Was I an inspiration? Was I honest? Was I present? At the end of the day. And the answer's not always 10 out of 10 for each of them. But that's okay, because when the sun goes down, it means it's coming back up again. And every time the sun comes up, we have another chance. We have another chance to be better than the person we were the day before. And that's the only person we should ever compete with. We should collaborate, going back to Neil's point. We should look to collaborate with one another rather than compete. The only competition is with the person we were beforehand. And if we do that, and we truly listen internally, then we can grow. We can grow and we can give back to community. We begin to love ourselves more. And if we love ourselves, we can be loved even more. But it all starts as simple as by actually listening to your heart.
Smile, I get an that love falls apart, your little piece of heaven turns to dawn. Listen to your heart when he's calling for you. Listen to your heart. There's nothing else you can do. I don't know where you're going, and I don't know why. But listen to your heart before you tell him sometimes you wonder if this fight is worthwhile. The precious moments are all lost in the tide. Yeah, they're swept away, and nothing is what it seems. The feeling of belonging to your dream. Listen to your heart when he's calling for you. Listen to your heart. There's nothing else you can do. I don't know where you're going, and I don't know why. But listen to your heart before you tell him And there are voices that want to be heard. So much to mention, but you can't find the words. The scent of magic, the beauty that's been. When love was wilder than the wind. Listen to your heart. Take a listen when he's calling for you. Listen to your heart. Take a listen. There's nothing else you can do. I don't know where you're going, and I don't know why. Listen to your heart before. Oh, listen to your heart. Take a listen when he's calling for you. Listen to your heart. Take a listen. There's nothing else you can do. I don't know where you're going, and I don't know why. But listen to your heart before you tell him goodbye. Listen to your heart. Take a listen to it. Listen to your heart. Take a listen to it. Listen to your
Listen to Your Heart by Roxette. There is probably a whole show that we could do on the importance of listening to your heart. Maybe we'll do that at some point in the future. The difference between our hearts, our heads, and our guts. Maybe there's a show for the future. But that was the Resilient Show this Friday. My thanks to Neil Calver of Link, Link, that's LINQ.IT. If you want to go and have a look at the platform that that he has built in order to help businesses manage through change. And also my thanks to Dinah Cox of South Wairarapa Veterinary Service. What a great role, and it's one that I had in the past, of being the people leader, of having the people to look after. I'm not a great fan of the term HR manager because that suggests you're doing things to people rather than being part of a team, and even as a team leader you are a part of it. But that was the Resilience Show today, and our title was Resilience in Business. If you enjoyed the show, reach out, stu@studarling.com. If you want to have a go at journaling and begin to think about your own values, jump over to www.studarling.com. There's some content there as well. But that's it, guys. Have an amazing week and weekend when it comes to you, and I will see you next week for another show.